All right. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Johnny G in the morning. I know it's been a while since we put one out, but as you can see behind me, I do have a new setup here. I bought a new home. I have been moving in. I have been getting my dog used to it. You guys all know who Levi is, if you follow me at all. So that's kind of why we haven't been on for a while. But I'm going to be doing a podcast today, another true crime one on the Menendez brothers. I'm not sure if you guys know anything about the Menendez brothers, but what I'm going to do, like what I always do on these, I sit and I watch the documentaries, I take the notes, and I try to kind of make it go a little bit quicker than actually watching the entire documentary. There was 5 episodes. They were all about 45 minutes long. So if you guys haven't heard about this, it's a very, very crazy story. It is about Eric and Joseph, or AKA Lyle Menendez. They always say Lyle instead of Joseph. I'm not 100% sure why they do that, but he goes by Lyle. So this all kind of starts off on August 20th of 1989. There was a murder in the Menendez home, and it was actually of the mother and father, Father Jose and the mother Kitty, which is Eric and Lyle's parents. So basically what it was is they were found shot to death in their den in their home. It kind of all stems off of, these two brothers that were on trial. They were trying to figure out whether or not, it was a self-defense thing or if it was for the money. They kind of do a little background, a little bit on Jose Menendez, who he was actually like a big entertainment executive that had a lot of different enemies. I guess he had some ties with the mob as well. So what kind of went down was the brothers were getting sexually abused by their father. This story has a lot of twists and turns. They discuss how Eric was being sexually abused by his father, and obviously before him, Lyle was being sexually abused by the father as well. There was tension in the household all the time. The brothers were not allowed to really have any friends. They weren't allowed to really do any sports that kind of involved teammates. It had to be more solo sports, which tennis happened to be the sport that they were in. And Eric actually graduated. He was 18 years old, and Lyle was 21. Eric graduated and got accepted to UCLA. And he was super happy. He thought he was going to be able to get out of the home. He was going to go stay in the dorms and actually get away from his father and his mother. Which later he found out that, his father was not going to allow that. He said, nope, you are going to be staying with us, even though he kind of had, you got like the free year or something in the dorms, and he was really hoping that he was going to be able to do that just so he can get away from his father. That kind of grew some tension within the household starting right there. And Lyle was talking to Eric about it. Eric kind of broke down, and he kind of told him, why he wanted to get away. He explained to him that, their father has been sexually molesting him to where, Lyle grew angry. Obviously, it happened to him in the past, too. They kind of had a little discussion about that to where Lyle ended up confronting his father, Jose, about it, where they had an altercation. And, how that would go, having to do that with your dad. That's probably has done that to you as well, which kind of terrified Eric, knowing that, oh shit, I wasn't supposed to tell. Now some bad things are going to happen to me. I'm going to be getting punished for this. So Eric kind of grew into a suicidal state. He was terrified that something bad was going to happen to him, and him and Lyle, they discussed it and decided that they were going to go get some weapons to be able to protect themselves. So they went and purchased some weapons. I believe they were shotgun, and I'm not sure what the other one was. The only one they really talked about was the shotgun in the documentary. So this is kind of boiling a little bit more and more and more to where the father, this was a day before the murders actually happened, the father decided he was going to take the sons out for a shark fishing trip or something like that. And as they're out there, they notice that, they're not fishing at all. They don't have any gear with them. So they didn't know what was they thought maybe that was how it was going to happen, that the father was going to bring them out there and murder them on the ship, which was kind of weird because they did have kind of like a guide with them. But all it was is they sat down, they kind of talked about what happened. They didn't really go into a whole lot of detail what happened. And just so you guys are aware, too, this entire documentary that I watched was by Eric Menendez himself from prison. He was kind of telling the story. He said, the media kind of screwed up the story a little bit. There was movies that were made about it, and they kind of screwed up the story as well. So these are all Eric Menendez's words, and this is just kind of what I got from that documentary. So after they were kind of talking on the boat and they came back in, and it was the next morning, and this happened to be the day that the murders happened. It was on August 20th. Eric decided he was just going to kind of go to the beach and just kind of reflect on everything that's been going on. This tension has been building in the household. There's a lot of stress going on in his mind, a lot of suicidal thoughts. He decides to come back home where his brother Lyle is there, and he's kind of panicking, saying that him and his father have gotten into it again. Eric was talking with his mother and finds out that his mom has known the entire time. She pretty much looked at him and was like, yeah, I knew that was happening. Like, what do you think? I'm fucking stupid. And he always kind of questioned that, just because he'd be upstairs while this is going on and he would hear his mother coming upstairs, but she would never go into the room. She would walk by the room. And he always thought that was kind of odd that she wouldn't, pop in there to see, what the hell is going on. So that got him very frustrated with his mother as well. So when he returned back to the home, both the brothers were confronted by the parents, and there was just a bunch of yelling going on. Eric was told to kind of go to his room. They told Lyle that he was not able to leave the house until they decide, what's going to happen. And Jose and Kitty kind of go into the den area to where they were back there for quite some time. And, that kind of spooked Lyle a little bit to where he went and got his brother and basically was like, it's going down. Like, now it's going to be us or them. What are we going to do here? So they got their guns. They just busted through the doors to the den, and they ended up just, firing. They unloaded their weapons, and actually to where Lyle reloaded his weapon, walked her on the couch, and then shot his mother point blank to make sure that she was dead. The boys pretty much knew that shit was going to go south for them. And they sat on the stairs, and they waited probably about good 10, 15 minutes, waiting for the police to come. And nobody ended up showing up. They thought that was a little bit odd. So they started kind of cleaning up a little bit. So they're cleaning up all the shotgun shells that were on the floor, trying to pretty much plan what their next move was going to be. They decided that they were going to go to the local movie theater and buy a movie ticket, kind of as an alibi to say, there's no way, we were even around when this happened. But the shootings happened at 10 p.m. and the movie that they were going to get a ticket for didn't start till 10:30. So they didn't think that was going to be a very convincing alibi. So they decided to go and stash the guns. I guess that they didn't really think about it. They just kind of threw the guns in the bushes. He said they never really buried them at all. They just decided to throw them in some bushes and thought that was going to be a good enough, hiding spot. When they return back to the home, still no police officers, no neighbors that kind of came over to see, what was going on. And it just kind of threw them off. And Eric decided, he had to go and be with his parents. So he ended up going to the den and just losing it, breaking down, crying. And he wanted to take everything back. And, Lyle actually eventually ended up calling 911, and you could hear the recording on the dispatch. He's crying, he's sobbing. You can hear Eric in the background crying as well, stating that somebody came and shot his parents and that they are dead. The police show up, and obviously they take the boys out of the home. They bring them to the police station and they interview them. Now, Lyle wants to make sure, hey, we got to make sure we get our story straight. Are you going to be able to tell them that we were at the movies? So the boys get interviewed, and the very next day, it's all over the news and people are hearing about it. But the one thing that was odd was apparently Jose Menendez was somebody that was not very liked, even though he was in the entertainment business. He knew a lot of people. Not a lot of people liked him. I guess he never really reached out to anybody, even really try to make friends. A lot of people said he was a hard ass, to where even when coworkers were told about the murders, it wasn't like oh my God, like I can't believe that happened. It was more of oh yeah, I can see that happening, because obviously he had some enemies. Either way, it was clients. There was also rumors going around that he was kind of in with a bad crowd, with the mafia, with the mob. So a lot of people thought, it's a possibility. There was a mob hit, and that was thrown on the news. That it was a possible mob hit on a very well-known executive in the entertainment business. Excuse me. So the first couple of suspects that they had was, there's no way it was the boys. The boys, there was this family lived the American dream. They had a lot of money. The boys were just very quiet. They never really, did anything ever. They were always in tennis practice or doing something like that. They never had any past run-ins with police. They were just very well-known, respected young men. So the boys were never even a thought until the next day. A detective was at the crime scene, and the older brother Lyle decided to show up and said that they were going to be staying with their tennis coach and that they need their tennis equipment. The detective thought it was kind of weird, but, he's like, all right, where's your equipment? He goes, oh, it's in the room that my parents were murdered in. And he went and got his shit and he left. That was probably mistake number one right there. He said he showed no emotion, like his parents were just murdered. He just walked in willy-nilly, went and got his shit, and he got it and left. So that kind of drew suspicion of that detective. And then as they were doing their investigation, they find out that the brothers are spending a lot of money. Lyle spending more money than Eric was. They kind of showed how much money they spent. Lyle ended up spending around $315,000 on his father's credit card, to where in Eric's name, they kind of had roughly around, $9,000. As he was talking, he was saying, Lyle, what he does when he's, sad or depressed, he takes care of that by buying shit. And by this time, Eric's panicking. Months have gone by, and, he's just terrified, what's going to happen. He can't hold it in anymore. He finally decides to talk to a cousin of his, where he's like, you really should go talk to a therapist. So Eric decides he's going to go talk to this therapist. And as he's talking to this therapist, he just breaks down. He tells him everything that happened. We murdered our parents, and all of this is being told to this therapist. And obviously, he's like, I'm going to have to turn you in. But the weird thing was it wasn't even really, it wasn't a therapy session where everything was supposed to be recorded. And this kind of comes a little bit later. Turns out there was a recording of all of this, and this comes up in the trial, and this is even kind of more of a mind fuck as well. It just so happens that they kind of have enough evidence against the brothers that they're going to decide that, yes, we are going to arrest them for the murder of their parents. So it is now March 8th of 1990. Lyle was arrested for the murder of his parents. Eric was over in Israel. I guess he was on some tennis circuit over there, where he got the news that his brother was arrested, and he knew he had to come back to the States. The coach was like, you know what? Don't expedite him, or however he phrased it. Don't have him come looking for it. I will bring him back, I promise. So they fly back from Israel, and he goes to Miami, where he meets up with a cousin of his, to where they're going to go out and they're going to fly to L.A. During that flight, he's explaining everything to his cousin, everything that happened, telling him, about the murders and what led up to the murders and everything that was happening to him as a child, how he told the therapist, everything. He's just explaining it. The second they land in L.A., he knew he was not a free man anymore. He got arrested on March 11th. And then it was probably a couple of years, 3-4 years, I think I would say, after their arrest that they finally had their trial. The only really defense that they had, obviously they had the confession that the murders took place. But so their really only defense that they had was the sexual abuse. Now they had to come up, the jury had to see if they're going to convict him. They want to see if they could go, it was self-defense. That was the defense. And the prosecution was going after him that it was for the inheritance of the money. Obviously, they're spending a lot of money. It was a very wealthy family. So this is kind of the debate in the trial. And they're going into detail, everything that happened, everything that happened to them, from Lyle being molested to Eric being molested, and he never thought it was really normal. But the very first time he was molested actually happened to be by his brother out in the woods. Lyle was pretty much imitating what his dad did to him, to Eric, for the first time out in the woods. And it was just crazy. It was just this mind fuck thing where it's just like, what the fuck just happened? All right. So this dad is molesting the kids, and now all of a sudden the older brother molested the younger brother. Fucking crazy shit is now happening in this trial. And then all of a sudden these family members are kind of coming out of, I was at the house before, and if they were being punished, they would have to go down in this certain room, and my aunt would never let us go down there, even though we heard the sounds. We were asking, what's going on? And she's like, it's none of your business. Don't go down that hallway. There was a couple of times too where I guess Eric told an aunt that was staying with them of, my dad touches me. And she's like, what do you mean he touches me? He goes, well, he massages me in my private area. And she's like, what do you mean? And he points down to his groin, and then he makes me massage his private area. And then she confronts the mother, Kitty, on it, and she's just like, that's none of your business. You need to stay out of this, yada, yada, yada. So it's just crazy on how all of these people are kind of coming out and saying, like, yeah, like they told me, but I thought they were lying. I didn't know that this was a real thing. I thought they were just making up stories. But you can see the pain in their eyes, and like when they're talking and they're crying. And there was a point when Lyle was giving his testimony on the stand that there was a couple of people in the jury that ended up kind of tearing up as well. And, there's something there, their story is touching other people, and like, holy fuck, what if these guys are really telling the truth? What are we going to do for them? So that was the defense that they had. And, I'm watching this, and legitimate defense. At what point do you say enough is enough and you just get away? He wanted to get away. Eric, when he went off to college, he wanted to go stay in the dorms and get the hell out of the house. But his dad was like, no, that's not happening. And, after how many years of him being sexually abused, it's like he's almost brainwashed. He's almost brainwashed in the thought of like, I can't disappoint him. I can't disrespect him. Things are going to get worse for me if I do. At what point is the breaking point where it's like, the only thing left to do is to kill the motherfucker? Yeah, it was a crazy, crazy thing to watch. And then apparently, they had therapists come in, and they had multiple different family members coming in. this trial kind of went on for a while. And out of 51 people who were interviewed, not one person had a good thing to say about their father, Jose Menendez, the tennis coach. He got fired because he finally stood up to him one time. He was very harsh on the boys at tennis practice. I guess he would wait until they were all exhausted, and then he would just scream at them and pretty much saying, they're fucking worthless. And the tennis coach finally kind of had enough. He's like, hey, you know what? How about you be the father? I'll be the tennis coach, and just let me kind of do my thing. And he ended up firing him right there on the spot. Yeah, he fired him on the spot there. And so it kind of gave you an insight that not one person is saying a good thing about Jose Menendez. You find out that the mother, Kitty, had suicide notes that Eric found. She tried to overdose on pills. She went and talked to a psychiatrist, and even her psychiatrist is like, she has a drinking problem. No one understood why she wasn't leaving this man. She grew up in an abusive family as well, so it was almost like she didn't know how to handle it because she kind of grew up in that environment. But not to protect your sons like that, I don't understand. I guess if you grow up in that kind of situation, you're not really sure what to do. You're kind of used to that, I guess. You're used to a lot of crazy shit happening in your household. But yeah, there's a bunch of things that kind of came out about the mother, and then, obviously no one fucking liked the father at all. It took close to a month, if not over a month, for the jury to kind of come up with their verdict. Verdict comes back. They could not agree to a unanimous decision. It is going to be a mistrial, and they're going to have to retrial. So nobody really won, but nobody really lost during the whole thing. And, the brothers are kind of breaking down. Now they're going to have to go through and sit through this trial again, tell the stories again. And it's just, that I don't think that's something you want to relive over and over and over. I'm sure what they wanted was it to just come to an end, figure out what's going to happen to them, and, kind of move on with their life. So while they're waiting for their next trial, this is kind of the same time period that O.J. Simpson was all over the news. Eric says he remembers sitting in jail and watching the news, and he saw O.J. driving in his white Bronco, the famous chase. Which turns out he actually knew O.J. O.J. was someone that worked with his father. He's been to the house multiple times. He said his brother Lyle used to throw the football with O.J. in the backyard. Just so happened, O.J., when he got arrested, the jail he went to is where Eric was, and he even said, hey, Eric, how's it going? He talked to him multiple times in jail, trying to kind of give him the ropes of what's going on. Then the O.J. trial happens. The boys still have not yet had their second trial. And then O.J. gets acquitted. Now, this was a huge blow for the DA office, to where, it was almost like they couldn't believe that it happened. OJ's getting off with this. We need to make sure a next big trial like that we win. And this was kind of Eric's words, and he explained, how that scared him when OJ got acquitted, because he knew that his trial was the next one that's going to be coming up. And he knew that the DA office really wanted this win. So they go into their trial. They have the same judge from the very first one. Eric had this attorney that was a pretty rough chick, man. Her name was Leslie. I don't remember what the last name was. But apparently she was a tough cookie in the courtroom. She made a lot of people nervous. She stood up for what she believed in. There was a couple of times, she was told she's going to be in contempt of court. And she was just like, I don't give a shit. You do what you have to do. Yeah, she came off as this very, very tough lawyer, someone that you didn't want to fuck with, because if you messed with her, she's gonna make your life a living hell. So trial 2 comes up, same judge. They still have Leslie as the attorney, but now they're going up against a different prosecutor. I want to say his name was David Kahn. He was very well known for being tough as well. They knew that he was going to be able to handle Leslie quite a bit. They also thought that the way she talked to the judge the first time, maybe he wasn't going to be that nice back to her during the second trial, because she kind of ran the show the first trial, and there was some talk, that he kind of backed down to her, and he, now he just kind of wants to make an example. So before the second trial even started, there was a new set of rules. Apparently, their defense, they could not bring up anything about the sexual abuse, which that blew my mind when I heard that, because I'm thinking, that was really their only defense, was this is self-defense due to the sexual abuse, and that they thought that the parents were going to kill them. So you're kind of tying their hands at what really their defense could possibly be. This one did not take that long. They did not allow family members to go up on the stand to talk about the sexual abuse, but there was a part during the second trial that really, really kind of blew my mind, and it kind of fucked everything for them. Leslie, apparently, the psychiatrist that has talked to Lyle and Eric before, he had a certain set of notes, and she went through the notes the very first time, and she's like, you can't have that in your notes. And he goes, well, what do you mean? Why can't I have it in there? She's like, you can't have that in there because that's going to show this was premeditated. And she basically told him, you take that shit out of your notes or you don't go on the stand. He said the reason the first time he took him out of the notes is because he wanted to come in and testify to let everyone know that Eric and Lyle were not a danger to society. He didn't believe that they should get the death penalty, is pretty much what he said. I didn't believe that they should get the death penalty. That's all I was there to testify for, is to make sure, because I care about them. I don't think that they're bad kids. They made a horrible decision, but they don't deserve to die for everything that they went through. So that was the reason he didn't take it out of his notes, and he altered them to be able to go and testify. Well, during the second trial, so he had 2 sets of notes. The original copy that had the notes in there that Leslie wanted him to get out of there, and then the tampered with notes. Apparently, Leslie's assistant pulled the original notes where he had shit taken out of, sent them to the prosecution. During the trial, there was 2 different sets of notes there. So they need to determine what the hell happened. So as they're having this discussion of what happened, the therapist he came out with it. He's like, this is what happened. Very first trial, I was told I could not have these in my notes. I altered my notes. And the ones that the prosecutors now have are the original notes that I took. Now, if I remember correctly of what was on those notes, it was more along the lines of, it was just little things where Eric said, I can't take this anymore. I got to do something about this. And what that phrase is stating, this is a premeditated thing. He had this premeditated in his mind that he's going to kill his parents. But I mean, it's something that people say when there's like, I can't take this shit anymore. Like, I got to do something about it. It doesn't mean he was going to go and kill his parents. It could have been along the lines of, I have to leave. I'm just going to get up in the middle of the night. I'm just going to fucking leave. I'm never going to come back. I'm never going to contact anyone from my family, change my name. It could have been something like that. But in Leslie's eyes, she's like, that's a premeditated phrase. We need to get that out of there. So that all came to light. The judge then asked Leslie, the attorney, hey, do you want to take the stand and clear your name on this. She pleads the fifth right away, and a discussion, doesn't say anything the rest of the court date. She had someone else that was working with her, so they kind of took over. So right there was pretty much they're defeated. She got caught in a lie. She, I guess, doesn't really talk publicly about the trial. I think she had a book about it, though, but she doesn't really talk about it. I don't think she does interviews about it either. So basically, what was happening in this trial was they were deciding whether or not the Menendez brothers are going to get the death penalty or if they're going to get life in prison without parole. That was basically their two options. It took them 4 days to come up with their verdict. And the verdict was first-degree murder. So they got life in prison with the no possibility of parole. Kind of basically what I would imagine would happen. I mean, you can't deny that they killed their parents. They admitted it. There was a recording from the therapist that had Eric's voice on there, and this is from earlier when I was discussing about the therapist that did not have his permission to record this, but he did. This got brought to light by that therapist's mistress, who just so happens to be a patient of his as well. He told her about the tapes, and then he ended up breaking things off with her to where she called the police, said, hey, there's tapes about this. I think you guys would be interested in that. There was a couple of people that were pissed off about that because, you know, they were pissed at the therapist of like, dude, you can't be recording people if they don't give you their consent. You can't just record them. So there was a lot of different feelings about it. Obviously, it was good for the prosecution to have that tape. Morally, it was wrong to have. I don't know. I've never been in that situation, I guess. But in 2003, the Menendez brothers finally got their appeal, where they actually sat in front of Judge Kaninsky, I want to say his name was, who he followed, you know, the first trial and the second trial, and he was actually really pissed off with the second trial that the defense was not able to bring up the sexual abuse. He thought that that was unfair, that was unjust. So he happened to actually be the judge at the appeal hearing. And even though he thought that it wasn't a fair trial the second time around, legally he was not able to overturn the conviction that they had. He said, you know, definitely he would overturn the death penalty. He doesn't believe that the death penalty would have stood with him. But the life in prison without parole, he didn't really have any legal bound to really overturn any of that. He even wrote a letter to Eric's wife. You know, Eric got married when he was in prison. Wrote a letter to her kind of explaining, you know, how he's really sorry he couldn't overturn it. His legally, his hands were kind of tied. So that right there kind of shows good faith in that judge. You know, kudos to him for reaching out and just kind of saying that, hey, you know, what you're going through has got to be hard. I understand. I wish I could do something different about this, but you know, I can't. So that showed, you know, good heart on his end. That was pretty much the story of the Eric Menendez brothers. It was a crazy documentary to watch. I highly recommend it. I watched it over on Hulu. Like I said, it's a 5-part. I'm just trying to break it down so you guys kind of get the gist of the story. We're at 35 minutes right now. I saved you some time. Hopefully, if you guys watch this case or have anything else or something that I missed or something that I said incorrectly, you know, feel free. You can put it down in the comments as well. And if anyone knows this trial really well, has some great things. Make sure I have my Discord in the description as well. You can go in there. We can have a little one-on-one conversation about it. We can message, and then possibly, maybe we'll talk about it, and we can, if we have a good back and forth, we can sit down, we can do a podcast together. I did kind of look up some things on Eric and Lyle to kind of get an update on it, to make sure, I have everything up to date. And from what I found, and it's possible it could have changed, from what I found, it was back in 2008, the brothers actually got to be in the same prison. They were being held in Folsom Prison. I guess it's somewhere very, very down south in California, pretty much right next to the Mexican border. They actually are now in the same prison together. Eric is running counseling for AA and NA as well. Lyle, I guess, has come to terms with a lot of things as well. He sees the world a little bit different. He's also a counselor. He's helping people, kind of get through the shit that happened to them in their life. So yeah, they're finally now together. When they went to prison, they were not allowed to be in the same prison. They forced them to not be around each other. That's pretty much what I found on the Menendez brothers. It's crazy, crazy story. And like I said, guys, if anything is wrong of what I'm saying, you can put it down in the comments. Hey, sometimes you're not always right. You do research. Sometimes you get false story on something. But that's just what I found. And these were from Eric himself on this documentary. I pretty much took a lot of notes off of that. Whether or not he's telling the 100% of the truth, I don't know. I don't know if everything he says is the truth. Kind of like in their trial thing, it's one of those things where you have to decide whether or not you believe them or not. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out. Sorry it took a while to get one of these out. Like I said, just moved into the new home, had to get everything settled. I have been streaming over on Twitch as well. So you guys can find me over there, JonnyG in the morning, same as on this channel. Yeah, go over there, hit the button, get the notifications for when I go live. And we can even have a live discussion. I'm 100% cool with that. If we want to sit down, talk about something live, or you have any other ideas that you want, maybe we can discuss on a podcast, let me know. So yeah, guys, thanks so much for listening to the whole thing. We're close to 40 minutes here. Hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.